It was a stormy night when Sarah found herself standing alone at the dimly lit train station, the rain lashing against her coat. The clock ticked ominously as she waited for the last train home. With each passing minute, the weight of loneliness pressed down on her. The bustling day had slipped into silence, and all that remained was the echo of her own thoughts. Finally, the distant rumble of the approaching train broke the stillness. The headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the platform in a ghostly glow. As the train screeched to a halt, Sarah took a deep breath and stepped aboard, grateful to escape the storm. Inside, the carriage was dimly lit, and an unsettling atmosphere hung in the air. The seats were mostly empty, save for a few passengers scattered throughout. They seemed to watch her with an intensity that sent chills down her spine. Sarah felt a prickling sensation on the back of her neck. In the far corner sat a man in a tattered coat, his face shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat. Across from him, a woman with hollow eyes stared blankly, her fingers tapping nervously against the seat. An elderly man clutched a newspaper, the faded headlines hinting at stories long forgotten. Taking a seat near the window, Sarah tried to dismiss her unease. As the train lurched forward, she glanced out into the dark night, hoping the scenery would distract her from the eerie passengers. The rain hammered against the glass, creating a rhythmic pattern that almost soothed her. As the train sped through the dark tunnels, the lights flickered ominously, casting shadows that danced along the walls. Sarah's heart raced as she noticed the passengers moving slightly closer, their eyes gleaming in the half-light. The whispers began, a low conspiratorial murmur that echoed around the carriage. "What is happening?" she thought, her unease swelling into fear. Was it the flickering lights playing tricks on her mind? She tried to convince herself it was nothing, just her imagination running wild. Suddenly, the train jolted, and the lights went out completely. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she fumbled for her phone, using it to cast a feeble beam of light across the carriage. When the lights flickered back on, she gasped at what she saw. The man in the tattered coat had moved closer. His face was now partially illuminated, revealing a scar that ran from his temple to his jaw. He leaned forward, his voice low and gravelly. "You shouldn't have boarded this train." "What do you mean?" Sarah stammered, gripping her phone tightly. "Not everyone who rides here makes it to their destination," he replied cryptically. Just then, the woman with hollow eyes leaned in, her breath cold as ice. "We all have secrets, dear. Some are darker than others." As the train plunged deeper into the darkness, Sarah felt trapped, claustrophobically surrounded by these strange passengers. The whispers grew louder, swirling around her like a sinister wind. Suddenly, she was bombarded with flashbacks, images of horrifying events that seemed to belong to the passengers. She saw the man in the coat standing over a shadowy figure, a knife glistening in his hand. The woman's eyes revealed a scene of betrayal and loss, a victim lying lifeless at her feet. The elderly man's face twisted in anguish, his hands stained with blood, clutching a picture of a smiling child. "No! This can't be real," Sarah thought, shaking her head in disbelief. The train began to slow, screeching as it approached a station that didn't appear on any map. Sarah's breath quickened as she realized the other passengers were now surrounding her, their faces inches from hers, eyes glowing in the dim light. "Join us," they whispered in unison, their voices like a chilling chant. Panic surged through Sarah as she pushed past them, desperately searching for an escape. "Get away from me," she shouted, stumbling toward the emergency exit. As she reached for the door, the train lurched violently, throwing her off balance. The lights flickered again, plunging the carriage into darkness. She heard the sound of heavy breathing around her, the whispers now a cacophony of voices. "Help! Someone help me!" Sarah screamed, but her voice was swallowed by the darkness. Suddenly, the lights blazed back on, revealing the passengers' true forms. Their faces were twisted in grotesque expressions, eyes void of humanity. The man in the coat stepped forward, his mouth curling into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Do you want to know our secrets? He taunted, his voice dripping with malice. Just then, Sarah remembered the emergency brake. With newfound determination, she sprinted toward the control panel at the front of the carriage. The other passengers lunged at her, but she dodged, adrenaline fueling her every movement. As she reached the panel, she frantically pulled the brake lever. The train screeched to a halt, sending everyone tumbling. The passengers let out a chorus of enraged shouts, their true forms momentarily flickering. Sarah stumbled outside, gasping for air, as she stepped onto the platform of the dark, desolate station. But as she turned to look back at the train, she saw the passengers gathering at the windows, their faces contorted with rage. "You can't escape!" they screamed, their voices echoing through the night. In that moment, Sarah realized she was at a crossroads. She could run, escape this nightmarish train, or she could confront the darkness that had haunted them all. Gathering her courage, she stepped back toward the train. "What do you want from me?" she shouted, her voice strong. The man in the coat spoke first. "We want you to understand our pain, our suffering. We are trapped here, bound by the weight of our secrets." Sarah felt a strange connection to them, an understanding of their anguish. "What if I can help you?" she offered, her heart racing. The passengers exchanged glances, the tension thick in the air. "You would have to face your own darkness too," the woman with hollow eyes warned. In that moment, Sarah realized she wasn't just a bystander. She had her own secrets, her own pain. Perhaps by confronting her past, she could help them find peace. "I will," she said resolutely. "I will face my darkness. But you have to help me." As the passengers nodded, a strange light enveloped them. The air shimmered, and the train seemed to transform into something less threatening. The shadows receded, and for the first time, Sarah felt a flicker of hope. The train doors swung open, revealing a path lined with soft light. The passengers beckoned her inside, and Sarah took a deep breath. Together, they boarded the train once more, ready to confront their shared nightmares. As the train pulled away from the station, Sarah glanced out the window. The storm had passed, and the world outside appeared different, brighter, almost alive. Months later, Sarah found herself at a familiar station, the memory of that fateful night still fresh in her mind. But now, she carried a sense of purpose. She had helped the lost souls find peace, and in doing so, she had freed herself. As the last train approached, she smiled, knowing she had embraced the darkness and emerged stronger. The train's doors opened, and she stepped aboard, ready for whatever journey awaited her next.